Hello, gorgeous angel besties. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Rachel, and welcome to a very exciting video. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys some fantasy romance book recommendations. So today's video is going to be part 2 because I have done this video once before. I will have the first video linked down below, and ever since I made that video, which I feel like was maybe a year ago, I have been preparing for this video. So I've been compiling a list for months and months now, but it has just sort of taken me a while because as someone who reads a ton of fantasy romance, I have to wade through the average fan rows, through the less than average fan rows. But today I've compiled a really amazing list of fantasy romance books and series that I absolutely love, and I think you guys will too. So I'm really excited to talk about these. Let's get straight into it. This is part 2 of my fantasy romance book recommendations. All right, so the very first recommendation that I have for you all is a fantasy romance series that has now become one of my new all-time favorite series. If you are a frequent flyer of my channel, I'm sure you already know what I am about to talk about, and that is none other than the Kindred's Curse saga by Penn Cole. So the first book is Spark of the Everflame, the second book is Glow of the Everflame, and the third book is Heat of the Everflame, which I am actually reading right now and absolutely loving. And then the fourth and final book comes out in June, and that one is going to be called Burn of the Everflame. So what can I say about Spark of the Everflame? I do talk about the series quite a lot on my channel, but for good reason, you guys. The hype is real, and the hype needs to be realer. I need every fan row bestie to pick up this series and live your best life. This fantasy series is definitely a great recommendation if you're a fan of the ACOTAR series. It has a lot of the classic fantasy romance tropes, but there's so much originality in Penn Cole's writing and the twists and turns that we get, the characters, the found family, the romance, the magical creatures. Truly, this series has it all, and it is so special to me. So very briefly, the Kindred's Curse saga follows DM. DM is a human healer living in a human village that is surrounded by 9 magical realms. And the magical beings in these realms and the humans do not get along. They have had a very violent past. In the beginning of the book, DM's mother goes missing, and as DM sets out to find out what happened to her mother, she uncovers a lot of secrets about her mother, about herself, and this also gets her involved with one of the nearby magical kingdoms, which is called Lumos, and that royal family. That truly is just scratching the surface, you guys. So many incredible things happened. The plot gets very layered, and watching DM go on this journey is just truly so much fun. And the romance, you guys. If you want slow burn, you are going to get it in this series. To me, this is one of the most successfully executed slow burn romances that I have read in a fantasy romance. It is so good, you guys. It is so tension filled. There's so much will they, won't they, but it's so slow. And just when you think we're making progress, something happens. It's painful in the absolute best way. I really love the way that Penn Cole writes romance. She gives you just enough to keep you so excited, to keep you wanting more, but she makes sure to never rush anything, which I really appreciate. I think this series is absolute perfection, and you guys seriously need to go pick this up, have so much fun, live your best life, and fall in love with these amazing characters. The next fantasy romance book recommendation that I have for you all is another banger. Okay, these are all bangers, but this one in particular is just so special to me, and that is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This book really took me by surprise. I went into this book not really knowing what I was going to think, and was so blown away by the reading experience that I had, by how connected I felt to these characters, and how just amazed I felt after I finished this. I just stared at the wall for like 20 minutes after I finished this. The writing of this book, the beautiful imagery, the amazing love story in this book, I really latched onto and connected to, and I truly think this is a masterpiece. This is one of my new favorite books of all time, and it's actually a book that I ended up annotating, which I don't annotate too much, but I felt so compelled to by page like 50 because I was just so blown away by the writing. So this is a book that I do think you should go in with not knowing too much, but I will give you kind of a brief synopsis. Our female main character's name is Rave, and she is a deadly assassin. She has a very mysterious and kind of like somber past, and while she is out doing her thing, being the most wonderful stabby female main character, tragedy strikes, and this sets her out on a path of vengeance. We also have our male main character named Khan, who is known as a very ruthless king. He is on a quest of his own, searching for something very important, and Khan and Rave's paths end up converging in a very interesting way. And that's all I'm gonna say. I even think the back of the book does give you a little bit more information, but I think that's really all you need to know. I really enjoyed going in with little to no knowledge and just letting the story wash over me. So the things that stand out to me about this book and why it's so special to me is, number one, the writing style. I think it's really beautiful. It's poetic at times. It is very flowery. I think some people are gonna like that and some people aren't, but if you do tend to enjoy that type of writing style, I really do think that you'll connect with this book. I also think that the characters are just so compelling. Rave is someone that I really connected to right in the beginning of the book. I found her so fascinating, and you just root for her instantly. And what I really enjoy about this book is, while there are aspects of the plot that you can kind of see coming, there were definitely reveals that I could spot from early on, but even after that, there's still so much more plot to unfold. There are so many more things to discover with these characters and with this plot line and where everything is gonna go. I just think that this is such a rich story. And have I mentioned, there are dragons in this book. They are different than your fourth wing dragons, than your Abraxos from Throne of Glass, but I think they're used in a very beautiful and poetic way, and I think that they are super important to the story and will continue to be important throughout this series. This is the first book, and I have no idea when the second book is coming out, but that's like my most anticipated read of my life because this book really did a number on me and left such an impression on me, and I think it is absolute perfection. The next fantasy romance recommendation that I have for you all is The Crown of Oaths and Curses by J. Bree. This is an epic fantasy romance featuring fae and witches and so many other magical creatures, and the most slow burn that I have ever seen. I know that I just talked about the slow burn in the Kindred's Curse saga and saying, oh my god, that's so slow. This makes that look like insta-love, okay? This is 100% hands down the most slow burn romance I have ever read. And it's very, very interesting. And I really like the way that this author has done the romance, if you can even call it that. It's truly like nothing else I have ever read. So in this book, we have our two main characters, Rook, who is a witch, and then Soren, who is the High Fae Prince. And in the beginning of the story, Rook and Soren find out that they are fated mates. But this presents a huge problem because the witches and the Fae have been at war for years. They absolutely hate each other, and I do not use the word hate lightly, okay? It is bad times all around. Soren and Rook are devastated by finding out that they are mates, and early on in the story, they do meet up and they do try to figure out, is there any way that we can get around this mating? They also hear a prophecy that their union will bring peace to the land, but with so many years of absolute hatred towards each other, it's just a really difficult thing for them to swallow. So why I absolutely love this book is because of our girl right here, Rook. She is everything. She is such a strong and witty character. She has so much resilience, and she is so loyal to her people and her family, and it's just such an inspiring character. I also think that the world building was really well done in this book. There's a lot going on. There are a lot of different kingdoms with different magical beings, and it was just so interesting, and I'm so excited to see where book 2 goes, particularly because our boy Soren, he's got some crimes to pay for. That's all I'm gonna say. The enemies to lovers arc in this series is going to span over multiple books, so if that is something that intrigues you, I would 100% pick this up. Please be aware there's absolutely zero romance in this book. They hate each other, and once again, I don't use that term lightly, but I was endlessly entertained, and I really like our characters and the writing style and the world building. I think this series is going to be incredible. I could see this being a new all-time favorite series for me. I am so excited for book 2. By the way, there are 2 prequel novellas called The Scepter and the Sword that come before this book, and yes, you do need to read them. I get asked that a lot, and I personally think that it is required reading. The first one, The Scepter, is Rook's backstory, and then the second one, The Sword, is Soren's backstory, and you will get so much context for why things are the way they are in the beginning of this book. And I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you do skip those. And they're really short as well. The first one is 80 pages and the second one is 90 pages. That is 2 quick books to add to your Goodreads reading goal for the year. So please read those first and then start this book because it's really fantastic. The next fantasy romance recommendation I have for you all is Heavenly Bodies by Imani Iru. There's also the second book called Fallen Stars, which I have not picked up yet, but I absolutely loved Heavenly Bodies. This is a 5-star read for me. This is a celestial fantasy romance. Our female main character has to run away and escape to an enemy kingdom, but they end up harboring her if she agrees to train and become a weapon for them. She and the crown prince do end up having a bit of an enemies to lovers storyline. And once again, we have amazing found family, and one of the things that really stuck out to me about this book was the writing and the descriptions. The imagery in this book is so fantastic. That is one of the author's greatest strengths, is there's so many different kingdoms and they're all described very beautifully. We have this like kind of night themed kingdom. We have this day and sun and fiery flame themed kingdom, and I just think that the author really paints that picture, and it made for a really beautiful reading experience. Also, the cliffhanger that this book ends with is painful. I cannot believe that I have not picked up Fallen Stars yet, but I really enjoyed reading this. I flew through it, and I think if you like celestial fantasy romance, you will definitely enjoy this. The next recommendation that I have for you all is the Bridge Kingdom series. So this is an interesting one for me because I read The Bridge Kingdom in 2022, and it was all right. I gave it 3 stars, but it didn't super blow me away. It was just like fine, it was average. But I had many of my subscribers say, you should really continue on with the series. There's really amazing books in this series, keep going. And so I decided to listen to you guys because you are always correct, and you truly were, because I read The Traitor Queen in January and I absolutely loved this book, and that is why I am putting this series in this recommendation video. I think The Traitor Queen is such a strong book. I was so entertained. The first half of this book in particular is non-stop action. I really loved it. It made me have a whole new appreciation for the characters and the story, and I am so excited to continue on with this series. If you don't know what The Bridge Kingdom is about, in the beginning beginning of the first book, we find out that our female main character, Lara, is a trained assassin. She is sent to go marry an enemy kingdom's king and is specifically sent to go kill him. But of course, they fall in love. It has that wonderful trope, which is I'm supposed to kill you, but, which is truly just like an iconic fantasy romance trope that I really, really love. And although I thought the first book was fine, I wasn't super obsessed with it. The romance and the characters are truly at their best. So we have book 1 is the Bridge Kingdom, book 2 is the Traitor Queen, and then we actually switch POVs. So I believe this series is going to be a set of duologies, with the next book being the Inadequate Heir and the Endless War. And these are following characters that we do meet in the first 2 books, and I am really excited to continue on with these. But I think that Danielle L. Jensen has a really great writing style. This feels very classic fantasy romance, and I think that the series is really fun and has a ton of potential. The next recommendation that I have for you all is the Legends of Thesmar series by Helen Shore. So the first book is Blood and Steel. I gave this book a 3.5 star rating. Once again, it was like good. I enjoyed myself. For me, a 3.5 star is I like this book, I have some issues with it, but overall I liked it and I definitely wanted to continue on with it. And then I picked up the second book, Vows and Ruins, and I absolutely loved this book, you guys. This was so much fun, so good. And a lot of the issues that I did have in book 1, I felt were handled much better in book 2 and made me very, very excited to continue on with the series. The third book just came out, which is called Fates and Furies. And then I think the fourth and final book is also coming out this year. I forget the name, but I do think that will be the finale of this series. So if you are somebody who really likes training and battle in a bit of an academy setting, traveling through the woods, going on quests, you will be very satisfied by this book. We also have the like trainer-trainee trope, which is so good. And while I do think the first book is good, but could be improved in some ways, as I said, once I picked up the second book, the world building got so much better, the lore got so much better. I love the way that the romance was done. Also, there is like a lot of spice in this book. So if that is something that is very important to you, you're definitely gonna get it in this book. It was almost a little bit too much for me at times, but I do really love these characters. Wilder and Thea are a new favorite fictional couple for me, and I'm very excited, particularly by the ending of this book, you guys. Oh my god, the third book is gonna be crazy. We also have, once again, amazing found family. Cal and Kip are some of my favorite side characters I have read in any book ever. They are so funny and provide some much needed comic relief when the stakes are very high. All right, the next fanro that I want to recommend is The Witch Collector by Charissa Weeks. So this is the Witchwalker series. First book is The Witch Collector, which is the only book in the series that I have read. The second book is City of Ruin, which everyone who has read this series says this is like the most incredible book ever. Then we have a novella called The Wolf and the Witch, and then I don't know when the next book is coming out, but I have seen the cover for it. So The Witch Collector is definitely like a wintry themed fantasy romance. So if that is something you're looking for, you're definitely going to get that snowy imagery here. And this book has a really amazing setup. So our female main character is a witch, and then our male main character is the Witch Collector. Essentially, he's kind of like a witch hunter, and he comes to her village every few years to take one of the witches, and they are never seen again. Our main character, Reyna, her sister, was taken by the Witch Collector many years ago, and ever since then, Reyna has been training and preparing to kill the Witch Collector and take vengeance for her sister because her fate is unknown. But during their conflict, another conflict arises, and the two of them actually kind of have to work together and end up having to run away together. So we have this like witch hunter, witch enemies to lovers setup, and the two of them have to rely on each other to survive as more problems arise, and they just get pushed closer and closer together. What I loved about this book was the writing style. I thought was really beautiful, and then once again, that wintry imagery was really fantastic. There's also a ton of traveling through the forest, which I don't know if that's a trope, I don't know if that's a micro trope, but to me, that is just one of the best settings. I love going on a quest through the forest, having to camp out in the woods. There's only one horse. It is such a wonderful, wonderful setting for a fantasy romance and made for a super fun book. I'm really excited to continue on with the series, particularly because how I have heard people talk about the next book, City of Ruin, but I still think that this is a very strong start to the series with amazing characters and a wonderful romance. So the next fantasy romance recommendation that I have for you all is The Ever King by L.J. Andrews. First book is The Ever King, and then second book is The Ever Queen, which I have not picked up yet, but it is on my March TBR. I absolutely love this book, you guys. Oh my god, I had such a fun time reading this. This truly, it was such a delight. This is Pirates of the Caribbean meets Fae fantasy romance. What more could we need in this life of sin, you guys? It is so fantastic. We have a morally gray love interest. We have a really well done enemies to lovers arc. We are set on the high seas. There is a very salty, immersive vibe. If you like books set on the ocean, if you like that imagery, if you like a salty crew of questionable sea fae, you will really enjoy this book. I had such a fun time with this. I thought the romance was so good. I thought the spice was so good. Everything about this really worked for me. So this is the first book, and then as I said, The Ever Queen is the sequel, but this does conclude Livia and Eric's story, but the series is continuing on. I think it's going to be sort of like the Bridge Kingdom series or the Crowns of Nyaxia, where we have interconnected duologies, and the third book in this series is following a character that you do meet right at the beginning of The Ever King, and he is just chef's kiss perfection. So I'm really excited about this series as a whole. I think it's going to become a new favorite of mine. I know that this author does have another series that that I do really want to get into. The Ever King is so good, you guys, and I do feel like it is a little bit different than the other books that I recommended because it does have that like set on the high seas ocean vibe and a bit more of a morally gray romance hero than our other books have. All right, and the final fantasy romance book recommendation that I have for you all is a series. I've only read 2 books in the series so far, but once again, this is another situation where I went on a bit of a journey with this series. I read the first book, it was all right, but I did see potential and I was like, okay, I want to see what else the series can offer. This is the first book, we're setting the groundwork, let's see what happens. And then I read the second book and oh my god, I am obsessed, and I actually think this is going to be a new all-time favorite series for me, and that is the Lady of Darkness series by Melissa K. Rorick. So Lady of Darkness follows Scarlet Monroe. She is a deadly assassin, and in the beginning of the book she ends up meeting this guy who is very mysterious, and he has been hired by the king to train his military, but he takes a very special interest in Scarlet. He wants to know a lot about her, and Scarlet also is very wary of him. Alongside this, children at a nearby orphanage start going missing, and this orphanage is very important to Scarlet, so she starts investigating that as well. And you guys, this book truly has it all. We have vampires, shifters, fae, witches, we have amazing magical sidekick creatures, and a huge cast of characters. So as I said, book 1, it was like good. It was fine. I had some issues, but I saw the potential, and then I went on to book 2, which I read I think just like last week or the week before or something, and I'm obsessed. I'm fully in. I'm there. Sign me up. Put me into the book. I am ready. The second book was so good, so addicting. Also, this author's writing style is like bingeable, unputdownable. There's something about it that is so addicting. You just have to know what is going to happen next. Also, the author does something that I absolutely love, which is multi-POV, and as the book goes on, we get even more POVs. I also really enjoyed that she gave us the POVs of some characters that you wouldn't expect, which made me very happy. And I also think that along with the main character romance that we have, we're also going to see romances develop between other characters, and there's just so much. There's just so much to explore and to look forward to with this series, and I truly feel so excited about it, and I am really glad that I decided to continue on with the series, even though the first book wasn't like, oh my god, a 5-star. But even some of my favorite series of all time, the first book is not as good as books later in the series. Like Throne of Glass, I absolutely love that series, and I do really enjoy the earlier books, but like Heir of Fire and Queen of Shadows are definitely stronger books to me than The Assassin's Blade and Throne of Glass. So I am very happy that I did continue on with the Lady of Darkness series, and I personally think the second book is a huge step up from book 1, and you guys should absolutely pick it up if you're a fan of Throne of Glass, ACOTAR. If you read the Kindred's Curse saga and you want something similar, I definitely think Lady of Darkness will scratch that itch for you. It is so fantastic. All right, my beautiful besties, so that is it. That is part 2 of my fantasy romance book recommendations. I had so much fun. There's nothing that brings me more joy than talking about fantasy romance books with you all. So please, if you have any fantasy romance book recommendations for me, I would absolutely love to hear them. I love talking fanro with you guys. And if you made it to this point in the video and you wanted to let me know, go ahead and leave the fairy emoji. Please make sure that you're following me on Instagram and Goodreads. They are always linked down below. I really appreciate that you watched this video. I hope that you are having a fantastic day. I love you all so much, and I will catch you guys in the next one.